welcome to the JTM Community Podcast, where we are creating a community that you can bank on. Today's topics, that is plural, is going to be a little different from before because we had a three-way tie. Before we get into all of that, of course, thank you for everyone who has put in your votes or sent us your feedback. We can only manage this and keep it going because of the input that you provide. So all your stories and votes is what is used to create the topic ideas. So please, please, please keep sending those in. Of course, you can do that at j-tm.community/podcast. That is where you can put in your votes, send us an email through there, providing your stories, which gives us topic ideas also. You can also check out the website for additional resources. If you're interested in connecting with me for advancement advising, there's the info there that you can check out and kind of peruse. Of course, there's also a link to TikTok, and if you check that out, it is not about the videos that I have made and put on there, which are pretty limited, but the liked videos has amazing content creators and wonderful, inspirational, motivational, challenging ideas, thoughts, and content. So I encourage you to give that a listen and check it out. Moving forward to today's topics is actually, again, a three-way tie. So it'll be the topics of grief and loss, purpose, and time. Of course, we are here yet again with my man, Will Squires. He needs no introduction at this point, and I'm about to start considering you a co-host at this stage of the game. So
all right.
I appreciate you being here despite everything that you currently have going on in your life, which may or may not enter this podcast. We'll find out. We were going to be joined by a third person to discuss three topics, so it was very fitting, but he also has some things going on, so hopefully he will be a guest of ours in a future podcast. With that being said, let's just start today with the more heavy one, grief and loss. As I had mentioned, I think it was our last topic, have been to too many funerals, which would be fair enough to say to even have gone to one. But definitely in the last few years have had a lot of close deaths and losses there. What I want to kind of kick off the topic with, because most people are going to hear grief and loss and their minds are going to go immediately to the loss of a loved one, the death of a person, which is typical.
It's the main one.
Yep, is definitely a big one. However, the idea of grief and loss can go far beyond that. It can be the end of a friendship, the end of a relationship, having to cut family members out of your life. It could be the loss of a job, the loss of an opportunity. There's so many impacts and aspects of the actual idea of grief and loss. So when I say grief and loss and bring that up, what comes to mind for you, Will?
Well, you absolutely jumped on it right off the top. Is that the first thing that comes to everybody's mind, or at least most people who have had to deal with people passing in their lives, which is a horrible thing just in general, but it is the passing of a loved one. But going through all the different things throughout my life, after you said that we're going to be talking about grief at the intro to the show, is all the different chances that I've had in life and either haven't taken advantage of those chances, those opportunities that have been provided for me, and then looking back and going, I really should have done that, and having a feeling of loss from that. But you also touched on the fact that it's about relationships and friendships and things that you thought were going to last forever, not just in terms of an actual life. So it's the biggest thing for me is grief and loss is just how many people go through it but don't actually know about it, because they think everybody honestly straight away goes to death. And they don't feel like it's necessary to talk about certain things about, losing a friend. One of my high school friends that well, we've been friends since actually the end of elementary school.
Awesome.
But we haven't kept in touch afterwards. He was in my wedding, and right after the wedding, he ended up having, a couple more kids and moving away, and we just haven't kept in touch. And I grieve that. Like I go through that, and like we were talking about the last time I was on, it's my I should be reaching out more to make contact, but we're both super busy, and he's not seeming like, when I reach out, it's like real quick conversations and then it's done. So
Sure.
I'm slowly getting through that grief of like losing a really good friend that I've known since I was, 12.
Absolutely. I'm going to pause you for a second and be a pain in your ass, because that word should hold so much power, and it puts responsibility typically on an individual. Yes. I can definitely understand it, and by you using that word, what I really hear you saying is that you have value in that relationship, and there's a part of you that wants to connect more and reach out more, and that's where that that where you feel should be coming from. The word should be coming from. But to say that you can manage or create that relationship on your own is way too much pressure to put on one individual within a relationship.
Absolutely. And it really is. And one of my, like, I've brought this show up in the past, and I'll use it because I look up to this person. The Rad Show in our area, Rob, Anybody, and Don, they use this all the time. And the main gentleman on it, Rob, just goes, we don't live in should land. Everything he talks about when people say should, we don't live in should land. You have to figure out what's possible and go through there, and not go, well, we should be doing this. Of course we should, but we don't live in should land. We live in the now. We live in the real life where we get busy. It's a two-way street. I feel like I want to make that connection again, and then I just don't. And it, life just kind of, the relationship slips further and further apart. They make new friends, you make new friends, and sooner or later, it's just, it's not as, hopefully it's easier to get back into the swing of things if you actually reconnect, but you never know until you actually do. And so that kind of gives you that feeling like you've lost something that's been super important in your life for a long time.
Yep. There's a lot of things that kicked off when you were kind of explaining that. And I encourage you to, when we're done, or you could do it now if you wanted, is send that person a text. If I'll be completely honest, today was a strange day, and you and I were chatting before this, and I had mentioned struggling with a few different migraine symptoms, so maybe that is the culprit. But I was driving in for training this morning with a bit of a heavy heart. Couldn't explain why, but certain things had come to mind, and as we had talked about before, I try to be, when in the moments that those things happen, I try to be very, very intentional to not tell myself all these reasons that they're busy, that I'm busy, that XYZ, that I'll do it later. So as soon as I got to where I was going and I was parked, I sent those messages. One of those to our mutual friend, it was to Mason. For whatever reason, some things hit me hard this morning, and had those thoughts, and really long way to go to, you wouldn't have brought up that individual if that individual wasn't on your mind. Absolutely encourage you to connect with them. Worst case scenario is they won't get back to you, and it still feels good on your part, because something is motivating you to do that. And to be a pain in your ass is something that we had talked about, and you had said that's something I want to get better at. And it sounds like this person touched your life. I mean, shit, you just said they were in your wedding, which you're not just going to invite just anybody to be a part of that. So
no.
It sounds like they were at least at some point were a very significant person for you, for sure.
Very much so, brother. Like almost to the point of like brothers.
That's awesome, bud.
But that, like we talked about last time, it's definitely one of the things that I'm working on for myself, is to be more intentional on things, and not just to make you were talking about how it would make you feel better, or it would make me feel better, just making sure that I reached out and did that communication. And like we were talking about last time, it's not about making me feel better. It's about just checking in on that person to make sure that they are doing okay. And yes, it's because I want to connect. But it's definitely not for that purpose of like, oh, hey, I sent the first message. No.
Oh God, no.
No. So
feeling better is the byproduct of doing that thing that it is pulling at you, because you truly care about that person, and that's the motivator. You feeling having a level of relief after that is a byproduct of doing the thing that is motivating you to do it in the first place, for sure.
And that not to showboat or jump in front, but that leads into that purpose aspect, is like not just purpose of actually doing something for a reason. You have a purpose of doing it, and finding that reason of what you're doing. But it's tough when you take those things and you look back on them and go, wow, I had so many ways to make a difference, and not just have that person make it, like, not just be a difference in that person's life, but the things that they would have brought to my life as well. And just kind of see how that relationship kind of like just separated and parted ways. Is you look at it and you kind of just take a deep breath and go, that's sad. And you know, it happens.
Oh, gosh, all the time.
All the time. So
yeah, it's almost this acknowledgement or the grief of what could have been, of what things could have looked like. And I think when we all slow down and give it some thought, we all have some avenue of that with either a place or a person that's been in our life, and maybe they are. I'll use my family as a pretty good example of this. When over the years, even before my mom had passed away in recent years, and what that has looked like and whatnot. And me and my older sister, we didn't always get along. And she'll admit to that. I mean, we have some stories, and hopefully she will be a guest in the very near future. We've been chatting about kind of popping her on. But through our younger years, and we've been through some shit together for sure. However, we didn't get along, and then things changed a bit for us, and we have been. And her and I have had conversations in the past, not quite to the depth that I'm about to say, but that idea of kind of grieving what various familial relationships could have been, whether that was with our own mom. I know her and I have chatted even with our biological dad. But what came to mind when you were saying all of that were actually my two younger siblings. They're significantly younger than us, and over the years of hoped and got pulled into wanting to create it for it to be a certain thing. And there were definitely good moments over the years. However, when my mom had passed, things got a little more solidified, just what that looks like. And unfortunately, usually when there's a death of a parent, that things go in one of two directions. It can either bring family members together, or it can serve to drive them apart. And unfortunately, in a lot of ways, it did the latter. I mean, I love them. I care about them very much. And I hope that they are living amazing lives, and would love to connect with them, and had tried a little bit initially, but also that person that can understand what it is. The opportunity is there, but and I'm here if they ever wanted to. Absolutely. if they called me in the middle of this podcast, I'd pick up the phone right now. However, I don't have that expectation. So it's that same idea of the loss of those relationships could have been, and what I still hope that they do become that at some point in the future would be awesome. But also coming to the acceptance of it might never be that, and that gets to be okay as well. Because what I want it to be, it's very easily they don't. Or
Absolutely.
they maybe pay no mind or any thought to it. So it's not something that I can force, and I understand that. But there are days that it hits, especially when we're talking about it specifically, for sure.
Yeah. And right on the same line with you on that one is that we've talked about where I come from in terms of my parental background and like how my parents got divorced when I was 4. Both of my parents remarried, and so now I have not only half brothers and sisters, but step brothers and sisters as well. And it's the same for me. Like you just you wish that you would have done, either you would have done things differently or they would have, or the relationships would have been better, and more intentional on certain sides. And that there's their feelings that they have about, your family has feelings about you, and my family has feelings about me.
Oh, sure.
And sooner or later, we won't know what those are unless they actually verbalize them and communicate those with us. But it's tough to see those relationships kind of just separate, especially over the years when you used to be either really close or you put the energy in to try and make those relationships work. So
the investing in those or any relationship comes at a risk. And I think it's when we can take a step back and we can evaluate what the relationships are and what we want them to be, helps us to understand if it's worth the risk or accepting it for what it is. Have had a remarkable person in my life for quite a long time now, about 10 years also. And her and I have had a conversation of those relationships and kind of broken it into 3 different categories, which was essentially folks that are in your life temporarily versus for specific intent or versus lifelong. I can't remember, it was season, reason, and I'm forgetting the final. And what we both came to the conclusion of is that the harm or the hurt that tends to happen is when our expectation of the person is of one style of friend, but the reality is that that's not true. So somebody who is in your life for a very specific reason, let's bringing it back to grief and loss, you're going through a loss, so they're in your life and they serve to hopefully help in that regard. But your expectation or hope for them may be that they are like a lifelong friendship. But if that's not actually the reality, once they're no longer in your life to that capacity, that hurts a lot.
It does. It really does. I tell my kids this all the time, because going back to my all the time teacher view, because I never get out of my blanking teacher hats. It's like it's just sitting on top of everything else. I tell my students this every day when they come into my class, and they always talk about, oh, my friend did this to me and I didn't think they would do that. I'm like, well, remember, you're young, you're still trying to figure out who you are. They're still trying to figure out who they are. There's tons of different items that are getting thrown at them: social media, parental involvement, friends that you don't know about. And they're not going to be the same person in 2-3 years until they actually decide who they want to be. So you just have to be prepared for the fact that, this person that you felt was your best friend, or, could be your best friend, may not be in your life for very long. And it's not trying to be cynical. It's not trying to make them it's not trying to make them like see everything as finite, but it is. Relationships are finite. Life is finite. Everything that we do in this world is, has a timestamp on it. And it's not, it's either going to be, like you said, it's going to be temporary. It's going to be for a longer amount of time just for contentment, or it's going to be for a lifelong thing. And you just have to understand that when that relationship comes to a close, you're going to be allowed to grieve. You're going to be allowed to be sad, but you have to then move on, and you can't be stuck in that attitude. You can't be stuck in that, like, why did this happen to me? Well, because they didn't know who they were either, and now they figured out who they are. And you have to be happy for them that they figured out who they are. And even if it's somebody that you don't like, if it's a friend that turned into something that you weren't prepared for, you have to be happy that they found out who they are.
Yep.
and understand that that's the way that they're going in life, and then you don't have to follow that.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good distinction, kind of that idea of losses can come frequently
Yes.
as people are growing, because growth doesn't always imply you're growing together. You can just as well be growing apart. And at an early age, that probably happens more frequently, and you have less life experience. There's so much more that you're going to learn and physically grow as your physical development, not just your body but your mind as well, with all of that going on. You can create those relationships, but there's that level of growth that you'll grow into people that were strangers and grow away from people that you may have thought were your best buds or you had the greatest relationship. And sometimes people will grow apart in some ways, but they can pick it back up as if they didn't skip a beat as well.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that personally I've been trying to really work on as well, is just understanding that no matter what is going on in that person's life, if they ever, unless they've done me true harm, unless they've done something super hard to lose my trust and lose my respect and lose my belief in them, that, you know, if they need something, or if they want to come back into my life and at least try to get themselves back into that position because they missed that relationship, or that I'll be open to that. But you do your grieving, but you have to be happy for them that they've found who they are. And
yeah, even in times when we don't agree with what they're doing or necessarily who they're becoming, that acknowledgement is still super important.
But there's always a reason that somebody's brought into your life. There's a reason for every student that's brought into my classroom. There's a reason for every family that's brought onto the team of my school. There's a reason for every person that I play softball with, whether it be, you know, to not do those actions that they're creating around, or that create that attitude that they're around, and I have to kind of counteract that, and I have to be the balance to them. You just have to understand that there's a reason for what's going on. And you might, like I said, it's finite. You might be there for a little time, or you might be there for a little bit longer, but you never know. So
it really touches on the growth aspect of grief. And I can't remember the quote verbatim, but the premise of it was something similar of, when somebody is asking for courage, are they granted courage, or are they granted the opportunity to be courageous? When somebody's asking for peace, are they granted peace? Are they asking, or are they granted an opportunity to be peaceful? Which is, once you have that change of mindset and you have that understanding of how the world works, and regardless of if you're coming from a faith background or just seeing kind of the world for what it is you can't be courageous without fear, right? You can't create peace without the struggle, or in this case, violence, because complacency, contentment is not peace. Those are two very, very different things. But in the sense of grief, and kind of piggybacking off of what you're talking about, in the sense of everyone comes in our lives for a reason, as much as we would hope that those reasons are to give us joy, right? They can also create opportunities for us to be joyful. They can create opportunities for us to grow, to learn how to be peaceful, how to deal with frustration.
Yes.
Right? And those are valuable lessons. So we can get stuck in being frustrated, or we can see that as an opportunity to become more peaceful, to be more content, and challenge ourselves as far as, why am I frustrated, or why is this loss hitting me in the way and at the intensity that it was? What more was there to that I'm not seeing, because I sure should am feeling it, and I didn't think that I would feel this way. really brings us into that idea of secondary losses as well. So
Mhm.
if we use grief, so typically with a death, let's say, is there's that immediate loss, the loss of that
Yes.
person. And it doesn't even have to be death. It can,
No.
they're no longer in our lives for whatever reason, is that can come with so many secondary losses. When I bring up that idea of secondary losses, what comes to your mind, Will?
Well, just okay. So I love that you're tossing these things out because it makes me really think about the things that have gone on in my life. And
Go, buddy.
I know, right? So when you say the loss, not just in a life, but maybe a relationship, and what do those secondary losses look like? The things that jump out to me is that if it's a loss in your life, number one, it could mean the fracturing of other relationships because you were either with mutual friends or friends that you gained through that relationship. It could be the loss of just a normal routine item that you've done throughout your days. Whether it be I'm going to use our friend that was going to join us this morning but wasn't able to. Whenever we get a chance to, we go to the gym together. But I mean, and I've made a lot of amazing progress because of that. I might not have the motivation to continue that because it brings back that memory and that grief and that loss. And I still want to focus on myself, but I'm like, well, now I don't want to do this because of this. And now I don't want to do this because you just have to get through it's all these different routines and relationships. And it's almost like not a trickle down effect. I guess it could be, you can classify it as a trickle down effect. It hits each and every piece of your life, because if that person that you lost either in death or in just parting of ways, it can slowly break apart the things that you've been getting used to over the years. I don't even want to think about what would happen if my wife and I, since we've been together since, we've been together for 11 years, but married for 7.5. If that relationship was to slowly rip apart or we mutually or amicably split, I don't know what would happen, because
you have built your lives together and
everything is set, and so you have all this mini fracturing that goes out, and things that you thought were things that you thought were concrete in your life all of a sudden because of this one change in relationship could totally go away. And so you really have to, it doesn't mean that you have to be scared about it, because those things are part of life, people dying and people, in your lives coming in and coming out. But you have to be aware that there's going to be some repercussion from that loss. And it's not to be scared. It's just, you have to be mindful of it and be aware that it's going to suck.
And something being difficult doesn't necessarily have to invoke fear. And quote that I recently heard, probably going to slaughter this as well, is that fear is the worry about something that hasn't happened and doesn't exist. Which, when I heard that, made complete sense, because we're always fearful because of the story we tell ourselves in the brain, not necessarily something that is actually occurring in that moment. It's a fear of something happening in the future. So something tangible, I'm going to use you and Rachel as an example because of what you just said. And just for anyone listening, this is just an example. Will is doing wonderfully. The house is having its own issue, but not the relationship. So if I use a divorce, when those tangible secondary losses, so the divorce and the separation, the loss of that relationship is that immediate loss. However, splitting finances, the home, the loss of assets, dividing all these, the vacations used to go on,
the family members that I've built relationships on her side, her on my side, it's like,
could be all the way down to pillow talk, going to the movie, having sushi together. I mean, that cascade, that trickle down, that ripple effect that you're talking about, which in the moment of the loss, so in this case, that people would be hyper focused on the divorce itself. but the losses can, again, cascade much later. So if I use the death of a family member, right? It's people are more than kind of just their being. It's also the accumulation of the experiences we have with them and what we create with them. So you might go fishing and it just hit you out of nowhere. Like, this is something I'm supposed to be doing with my grandpa, but grandpa's not here. Or the setting of a plate at Thanksgiving, which can be also cool in some ways because folks can create their own traditions or rituals for
a great celebration of life and who that person used to be.
Again, just that idea of, as we're more mindful and the more that we can proactively view those things, it can be helpful because they can be planned for and be held to be accounted for to help navigate. So it's not such a blow.
Right. And I love what you brought up about being mindful about it, and as well as just making sure that you're always focused on it. But you brought up the fear part, and fear is a ridiculous enabler of just all these bad choices. Like you say, you think about things over and over and over, and you think about it worse in your head, and then the event actually happens and it's not that bad, and then you're like, why did I worry about it so much? I love how you said being mindful, because being mindful of it does not mean you're fearing it. You just have to be aware of all the different possibilities. And it doesn't mean overthinking. It doesn't mean fearing it. It just means you have an open-minded kind of knowing that something's going to happen. You don't know what, and you know that you can't change it, but you just have to be ready for it. You have to be prepared for it, not fear it, but you have to be aware of it, that it's going to happen. And that scares people. And then they live in that fear, which just shuts them down. And that's one of the things that I've seen from so many people is they fear things because they overthink it. And then they never want to take that chance. And
go ahead. I'm sorry, bud.
No, it steals something from them. It steals that thing away. And that you can grieve as well.
Oh gosh, yeah.
You can grieve the loss of a choice that you did not make, going to choosing the right college, or choosing a college that's further away just because you wanted to be closer to family, because they made you feel bad about it. Who gives a flying blank? If your family's going to make you choose them over your future in education, you might have to rethink that, the relationship and how much pressure they're putting on you. I mean, yes, of course, if they're providing money to you, they're going to want to have some say, but then you can just go out and do your own thing and say, hey, no, never mind. I don't need your money. If they're providing, because we have a lot more people providing money for college these days. Just, I hate it when people get into that fear of me, because I've gone over this with my counselor, is the fear of disappointing others. And so they don't do something because they don't want to disappoint people. And that has been one of my biggest flaws throughout my entire life, is that I don't want to disappoint people. So I make decisions based on what they want compared to what I want and what would be best for me. And I have gone through grieving a lot of those choices because I can't go back. There's a beautiful,
you wish you would have done it different.
Yeah, there's a beautiful poem by Robert Frost called it's not his Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, but it's The Road Not Taken. And in that poem, he talks about there's a path that diverges and goes apart in a wood, and the person who's walking down it, the narrator in this story, can't see which way the paths go, but he knows that once he makes one choice, he can't go back to that path again. And it's a beautiful way to kind of think of, once you make a choice in your life. And he was sad about it at the end. It's sad to this day that I could not travel both. It just kind of makes you think about, what are the things that I've done in my life? And you go back and go, well, crap, I could have done that better, or I could have done this better. I could have made that relationship better. But you can't go back and change those choices that you've made, and you have to grieve it and then move on and try to make better choices in the future and learn from those experiences.
Learn from that. I think that is a really, really good concept and something that I haven't given a lot of thought to. At the same time, it's been a bit of a guiding star for me the last few years, as we had chatted before.
Mhm.
And I think that's why I do the things that I do, even in moments where I might doubt myself or doubt the situation, is being mindful to move forward without having a sense of regret, even when it comes to reaching out to friends. So again, in those moments where like I have the thought or the feeling, I take action. When it's been engaging with folks or putting myself out there or saying things that others might look down on, because it's the truth, and others, it creates a sense of discourse or things that others might not be comfortable in, and I'm not necessarily comfortable in as well, because being honest sometimes creates a little bit of chaos, and people try to avoid the conflict and avoid the chaos, and I would prefer to acknowledge it and resolve it, as I move forward, which can be difficult. Chit had a moment of that this morning, with Tracy and I, as we were trying to navigate some things, and had the thought of, I want to be better at that, because there are moments where things will happen regardless of who or where it's at. In the effort to keep the peace, I won't do the thing that would resolve it or address it long term. And that's not fair to me or them, because why do I want to prolong long-term conflict because of my desire to keep the peace in this particular moment? And that does a disservice to both me and them. So literally driving in this morning, had that thought, and was like, okay, like, I'm not going to bring it up now. I'm not going to say this to that person now, but I am going to be cognizant to do that better moving forward, because we deserve that. And I feel like everyone deserves that. But sometimes it's frightening, right? Conflict isn't fun. But you can't find resolution if you don't manage and specifically address those things, whatever it would be at. And not gonna lie, usually my approach to that is with a sense of humor, because that feels better for me, and typically creates a light dialogue, even if it's to something serious, for sure. I want to go back to something that you were saying, Will, because you were specifically talking about past, present, and future, and kind of that idea, if you focus on the past and those past mistakes or roads not traveled, or you have this fear of the future of something that hasn't even happened, and may not even exist, brings us to one of our topics that we're talking about, which is time. So when you think of whether past, present, or future, or any aspect of time, what do you feel like has been the most impactful throughout your life?
Well, actually, when it comes down to it, I've been really bad at and we talked about this the last time I was on as well, was I've been really bad with putting my time into places that benefit me, that look out for my well-being, mental, physical, spiritual, however you want to look at it. The time aspect is something that I am still working on, so I'm definitely not fantastic at it. But when it comes to giving time to other people and helping them out, and not to toot my own horn, but like you've said in the past, and you've called me out on it, and I love you for it.
What'd you say there? What, one more time?
You called me out on it, and I love you for it.
Yeah, you do.
I've and especially with my counselor as well, when we've been talking through certain things, is that I have so much time that I want to be doing things with the people that I love and care about, but I end up, and don't get me wrong, I love my students and I care about my students, but I'm not their parent, and I can't be that driving force in their lives. I can be a big influence, but I can't be the driving force and protect them and and watch over them and make sure that they're taken care of 24/7. I have to focus on myself and the people that I want to spend time with.
As you said before, it takes a village to raise a child. And when you just said that, you're trying to be the whole fucking village by yourself.
Yes. And I notice this flaw in myself now. Especially because you and a couple other of our friends and my counselor as well have been talking me through that. So which I super appreciate from all of you. But like if you talk about the love languages, I'm going to kind of just totally transfer stuff. One of the things that is my wife's love language is quality time. And we talked about it last time, that there was a big disagreement when I didn't focus on being home and I was just going through my daily routine that I'd had before we got married. And then she was here and I didn't give her that time that she required, that she needed, to feel loved and cared for. So that caused a huge rift. Nothing that couldn't be overcome, but it took that very difficult conversation about, I need to be more mindful of my time. And so over the years, that's been a big thing. And then slowly talking about it with you and with my counselor as well, is that I just have to start focusing on time as, where can I put it? My time management, do it a little better. Because it was so much of it was put into my career and into my students. And number one, that's not fair to my family. And it's not fair to me as a single individual. So
I'm glad that you were able to bring that to you. I was listening very intently, because in the past, you would have, even throughout your explanation, you would have said how it's not fair to all these other people, your wife, your friends, your family, right? But you would have neglected yourself. So I'm so proud of you that you were able to be like, nope, I'm a part of this equation.
That part's still the hardest though, because I still want to make sure that I get that time for the other people. And so I still put myself at the tail end of all of that. So if I don't have time for myself, I just deal with it right now. And I'm just trying to work through that. But, making the time for the people outside of my work that are actually, important to me is something that is a real struggle, and is something that is going to be a constant struggle for me, because my mind and my brain and my actions are always wanting to go towards everybody else, and not, taking some of that time, just a little bit for me. Because then I feel
guilty, doesn't it?
It goes back to my Catholic guilt, and I feel guilty about taking time for myself when I should be doing good deeds in the world and taking care of everybody and making sure that the world's a better place. And when not, and even in not focusing on myself. So
it's difficult to serve others if we're not serving ourselves in the process, for sure.
Yeah.
As you were saying, and kind of explaining that, and I think that's absolutely awesome to see the growth in understanding yourself a little bit better, at the same time acknowledging, hey, yep, I'm a part of that equation, but if there's any cuts that need to be made, I'm usually the first one. I'm going to cut what I need out of that. I think in an ideal world, time for others is also time for yourself. When you're investing in the things, the communities, the friendships, the relationships that you truly value, as you get to put time in that and they put it in you, that itself, at least in part, can be time for ourselves. Not necessarily the whole thing, not trying to insinuate that it is that, but when we truly put time and effort in the things that we value, that investment often gets reinvested. It's like reinvesting your dividends in a stock market, right? Is that as it's growing, it's investing in itself, but in this case, itself is me, is our connection, relationship, you and your wife, you and your
Mhm.
students, you and your family.
Well, as you know, for the stock market stuff, since a couple of us do it, I'm not very good at it. I try to play it super safe. And I don't make very many gains for myself because of the fact that I'm always trying to, like, I'm such a tightwad. So it's so different. The money aspect for me is so different. Like, I'm super tight on this, but like I'll give all my energy to everybody else. But when it comes to the money aspect, I don't like spending a lot of it because I want to make sure that if there's anything that happens, so that it's just,
that is a perfect metaphor for time in your situation. It's you only have a limited funding, so a limited amount of time, and you will invest it in others. You'll play it safe in the sense of keeping the peace and helping them manage at the detriment of yourself, your own investment in you. I don't think your example could have hit home for you specifically any better than that.
This is your fault, by the way.
You're welcome.
I'm just saying.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. This is your fault.
I think you keyed up on a lot of things. I don't think you did. I know you did. I'm going to take us back to when you're talking about what your life looked like, and then when you and Rachel had gotten together and married, and you were initially living your life with that same routine.
Yeah.
And I can only speak to our lives, our culture. I'm going to clump that into whether it's fair or not, is American culture, is that we are remarkably time oriented.
Yes.
So people work 8-hour days. Like, everything is to the minute. I'm going to do this and then I got to do that. And the closer those things get to overlapping, the more distracted we become. Yes. So when I have to work till 5, but then I gotta get home, get the kids, get dinner made, get them off to their extracurriculars, softball, soccer, football, whatever that would be, right? And then I gotta get home from that and make sure everything's good for the morning. Lunches are packed, and trying to do all of these things and navigate them. It's all time oriented. When that happens, we begin to feel overwhelmed, because most people, just like yourself, just like myself, when time is limited, the first things that we cut are the things that help us manage, the things that help us cope, which creates, not only are we constricted by time, we're not doing the things that help us manage and do that better. So now that struggle, and oftentimes that what happens is sleep, or it might come with a dietary impact. So we're rushing, can't make dinner. We're gonna have to hit Mickey D's. I'm not shitting on Mickey D's. I'm down for a Big Mac. But the idea of nutritional value and what that starts to do on your body over time, which makes that struggle even more. So again, this idea of how remarkably that's actually for you. Side note, Brenda, because I know you'll listen to this, and you gave me a little bit of shit of using the word remarkably often. So completely.
Is that your keyword? There you go.
Yeah. I did. I told her that if I said it and I caught it, that I would fill in the blank of that story. But that idea of, as we are so time driven, so time centered, we often sacrifice experience for time. So when you or Rachel are home, and you could be focusing on yourself and each other and spending that quality time. Is there not a detriment to that relationship when you're rushed immediately after to get this thing done? So, okay, we're hungry. We have an hour to get sushi, get home, get situated, and then we have to be off to softball, right?
Whoa. I'm just gonna slow you down right there, partner. We do
no sushi constraints.
No, sushi will never take an hour. You need to plan at least an hour and a half to 2, because in Reno you can get all you can eat sushi, and it's sit down and hang out. So that is one of the times, but everything else, yes. those time constraints are ridiculous, because especially when we've talked about this in the past again, I did my master's program. She's currently in her master's program for social work. And I like at those times, I would come home from school, have to get right onto my schoolwork. And then we would have either a quick dinner, or we would not eat at all to go to softball or a sporting event that we had going on. Or if we didn't have anything going on at night, it would just be, okay, this is homework night, and get it all done. And yes, it takes a big, impact on the time that we get to spend together. Now, luckily for us, since we've had that big conversation back in the past about spending time with each other, especially when I was doing so many sports and stuff outside of school as extracurricular activities. With that, just us being in the same house where we can go check on each other and say, hey, is there anything you need? Or just give each other a hug, or take a quick break and just sit down and watch, or listen to something for 5 minutes together, or put laundry away together for 5 minutes, is just, it's easier. It's not a fix, but it gives us that opportunity to take some time together.
More maintenance than anything.
Yeah, it's more of a Band-Aid. It's more of a Band-Aid. Yeah. So I don't know. This is going on year 4 that we've been in master's programs now. And she still has about a half year left after this semester gets over. So we won't know a regular home life for the last 4.5-5 years. So it's been a good chunk of our marriage has been managing and trying to do it, trying to just find those little pieces of time to do that and hang out and just be together and not focus on anything else. So the time is super hard to track down.
Absolutely. I want to use an example that I know about you. However,
I hope I know it too.
You do, but you haven't brought it up, I don't believe, through the podcast. And it kind of goes back to what we're talking, even with grief and loss, not necessarily that it pertains to that, but we're talking about rituals and traditions. And now with time-oriented, kind of that acknowledgement, in order to maintain and do that well, you have to be very intentional. Sometimes it's setting aside at least an hour and a half to get sushi, or time for one another. I know, for example, you and Rachel will go to the gym together sometimes, and just is really putting in the effort and almost scheduling it in, knowing that, again, we are so time driven to have a quality of relationship and quality of experience. We have to account for the time for that. And when we don't, people get moody, they get irritable because they're trying to do this thing, but they're rushing and their mind's already on the next thing. So they're kind of complacent and they make mistakes now. They don't get the joy, to the opportunity to enjoy cuddles now, because come on, I have to leave, I have to be to work in 15 minutes, and we fail to think that how impactful would it have been for that person and ourselves if we allowed ourselves to enjoy that 30 seconds of a hug, of a cuddle, with a partner, with our children, with our family, with our friends. But in the moment, we often are agitated because you're physically holding me up and I got other shit I got to do. And for some reason, our value is so much on time and on what's next, that we neglect others and ourselves in that present moment, which brings me to the example that I want to say. And I might have the day wrong. It's I can't remember if it's Friday or Sundays, that I know you guys will frequently do a family dinner.
It's Fridays with my mother's side, and then we try to do a family dinner once a month with my father's side.
Okay. And is that on Sunday or?
It's Saturday, Sunday. It's the weekend when most people can get together. Yeah.
And I've heard you say this over time. I know this has been a long time tradition for you. And in the moments where we've been coming up with plans, or I'll hear you and Rachel have those conversations, there's a part of me that gets envious, which might be a powerful word. But one, I become jealous of the intention and the intent that you have to investing in those relationships. And as much as I have joy for you and jealousy of you in those moments, because bringing it back to the grief side, I don't have those relationships, the relationships in my own family that I think that would be awesome if the intentionality was there. Would absolutely be amazing, and is something that I've been proud of you, and I've never voiced that until now, of having that intentionality of investing and taking the time in those moments kind of designated, and it sets a time out during or throughout each week where you can do that. I think as, again, when we're so time focused, because I'm not going to lie, there's probably times where your brain will go through, there's a million and one other things I got to get done, so I can't do that. And I'm sure it doesn't happen every week. I'm sure that things have happened where you all had to cancel or reschedule, but for having just kind of a blanket day or time of the week to try and make sure you all get together and enjoy one another, it is something that I think is remarkably commendable for sure.
I appreciate that, but right off the bat is what I first thought that came to my head as soon as you started talking about that, about being jealous and envious of it, or just, seeing that intentionality, is that it right off the bat brought me to, crap, I do it with my really close family, but I need to do that with my really close friends that I want to keep close to, like you and the other guys that we've been talking about. Like, I tend to pull myself away and not spend that time with you guys because I'm trying to focus on things that I need to get done. And we talked about that intentionality about, taking a time to text or just saying hi and call. And that's why, I let you know about our buddy let you know a little bit earlier, but talking about the things that are going on at home this week. That's why today I was like, you know what? No matter what I'm doing, I'm going to stop and I'm going to do this because, number one, this is something that's important to you. And you're important to me. So by me taking the time to do this, I'm hoping that seeing that my time is important, and I'm using it to spend time with you and do this with you, is that I wanted you to see that intentionality, because screw the house. Like, the house is the house was built in the 1800s and it's been moved 3 times. So it's
no way, I did not know that.
It's a medieval muddle of just like stuff that can go on with this house, and it's ridiculously like unique and quirky, but things like that can be taken care of and can be resolved over time. Missing out on time with the people that I care about, my friends, is like you said, is something that I've noticed that I've been bad at, and I need to make sure that I make that time for. So,
well, one, I appreciate that. I very, very, very much appreciate that, which now makes more sense. When I had texted you, I had texted you with the assumption that with everything going on, you weren't going to do this. And you're like, no, like, I'm making sure that I take the time. And I felt guilty. I'm not going to lie. I felt guilty that
that makes 2 of us then.
Yep.
That makes 2 of us.
I think that speaks to where our hearts are, and our kind of gut reaction is wanting to make sure other people are okay first. And I was trying to do that for you, and you were doing that for me. So it created chaos.
That's why you went into your profession, and that's why I went into my profession. We're both people that want to do well and do best by other people. And it takes time away from ourselves at the risk of turning us into overworked shells of ourselves. And
sure, that's fair.
Yeah, it's just nice to be finally called out on it and make sure that I can be more intentional on my time and where I put it. So
we're definitely prone to having the idea of make the world a better place by serving others.
Yes.
And sometimes, admittedly, that can be at the neglect of ourselves for sure. I want to touch on a couple more aspects, and that is, again, one, acknowledging we are so time focused, even when it comes to other things, and tying grief into time as well. So often times when people will have a death, even a close death in the family, their employer will provide X amount of days, which typically is 3. It's this idea of being time oriented. Nope, like the employer has the employee's time filled. Like, we need you here to do these things for this amount of hours per week, whatever that arrangement would be. And what is acceptable for you to deal with and manage your situation and grief is 3 days. Which sounds ludicrous because grief, 1, does not work that way. 2, I am grateful that any days provided is definitely an asset and a benefit. But the impacts of that are substantial. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to point that thought out that you said any time provided is substantial. I think that's where your point about our society comes back in and hits really well. We've become so accustomed to being thankful for getting time from our employer to grieve for somebody that we've lost in terms of a family member. We're thankful for that. That's our lives. That's our livelihood. We either grew up with this person or loved this person for a long time because they were part of our lives. Grief, like you said, grief is not specific. It doesn't have a set time frame. And we talked about this a couple of times already, is that everybody grieves differently. It might take me 3 days to grieve. It might take somebody 3 months. And
3 years, a lifetime.
The fact that we're praising, corporations and companies and employers for, thank you for giving us our 3 days for grieving. For me, that's fine. For me, 1 day, a day and a half, maybe a half a day, depending on, what it is, because I know what that person would have expected me to do and how I feel that person would have expected me to keep moving on in my life. So I have a different grieving process than other people. But it just seems funny that we're saying thank you. Thank you for letting us grieve for somebody that we've lost who was such a big part in our lives.
What I've come
I find that is kind of funny, just because of the fact that there's so much stuff that we thank our employers for, when it's something that it's being a human. It's being a good human that you give that time off. It's not, okay, well, now you got to come back to a pile of work. It's just funny that we look at it that way. And thank you for giving me the 3 days off, and I'll come back and I'll do extra work to make up for it.
It almost plays into some guilt there as well. Over time, I think I've come to understand, and this might seem a little nihilistic, is that the days typically given for death and loss, for bereavement essentially, are not necessarily for bereavement, though that is how it would read. It's
That's exactly how the rules and the policies state.
It's more for the logistics. So those 3 days, 2 days of a showing and a funeral, right? It's the logistics of what you have to care for. It's literally get through the process, because these are typically what it takes to go through that, the logistics of a burial or whatever the ceremonies may be. We're going to give you 3 times to figure your shit out, but see you on Monday, kind of thing. And again, I understand how nihilistic and negative that may sound, as much as I'm trying to be objective with that understanding. At the same time, also appreciating that the allotment of time, not that it resolves or solves anything, but often might make the difference for somebody to, so they don't feel, hey, I have to do all of these things and get all of this stuff figured out. At the same time, I'm trying to work my job. And if I use my sister as an example, when my mom had passed, and I'm super grateful for her. She struggled in her own ways, but is a fucking rock star, and how she navigated everything. And she was kind of, not even kind of, she was the front man for everything going on, and making the decisions necessary and navigating. And my aunt had a big part of that as well. And bless her for the support that she had shown really long way to get to her boss. Hannah is remarkably gracious and allowing the family the flexibility to navigate things. And even, sorry, Tasha, telling your business right now, is she went through a surgery this year, which put her out of commission for a while.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, I went to help her. And again, Hannah, her employer, was so remarkably understanding. I was surprised, not because I questioned her as a person, is that level of understanding and flexibility is not something I had seen or experienced for myself or from others. So I can't express the amount of relief for my sister and what she was going through because of how understanding her employer was. And as I've had more conversations and a better understanding of that, is though it is her employer and a place of employment, they actually come across much more as a family, which is in this day and age might not be fair for me, but is to say, but seems much more rare.
It is much more rare. And I was gonna hit on that same point, is that you never, okay, I'm going to take away that full stop, never. You rarely see that humanity when it comes to corporations, business, because our society is run by, time, money, and the effort you put in. And so if they really kind of take the humanity out of it and try to take the humanity out of it, because it's less cool, because you're not making enough money and you're not, you're not looking out for your bottom line. Why are you spending time looking out for, your employees when they're just there to work for you? The fact that happened for your sister, and she was able to have an employer that was so amazingly compassionate and empathetic and helpful in that time of need. I want to say thank you to her, because you shared this story with me when you were, prepping on going and helping and taking care of this. And it was, I was kind of blown away.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that there's still people out there that care about the actual human, that cares about the actual person that they pulled in as an employee, or, just to take that time and go, no, you need more time. Look out for yourself.
Yep.
We can deal with it and we'll make sure that it's taken care of. Yeah, it's going to put a little extra pressure on us, but that's what family does.
I think when we are able to understand that, and we say by that, I mean, everybody can invest in the people, that's reciprocal. So when an employer invests in their employees invest in their employment.
Yes.
Which I think is right now, and what we've seen over the last 2-ish years, is things have shifted because employees felt like their employers weren't investing in them. That it was more transactional. You give me this being your time and I will give you this, your paycheck. And that when things got difficult and hard due to the pandemic, and employees didn't feel that they were being invested in, they gave it up. I'll leave, I'm out. And which we were seeing now is there's a lot of work to be done, but not workers to do it. Tracy and I were having this conversation just this afternoon, actually, before we started the today's podcast, talking about a local hospital. Is there's people that need the help, but there's less people to do the helping. And when those people felt forced or not cared for in the sense of by their employee or by their employer, they left. And that is not a judgment. I can completely understand that and get on board with that. But as we see a slight course correction, and coming back to my sister, seeing her place of employment actually invest in her, not in her as the employee and the service she provides, but as in her as the person, investing in Tasha. I have seen how that becomes reciprocal and her need and want and desire to invest in her work family, I'll put it. And I apologize to her if I'm putting words in her mouth, but she'll correct me later, I'm sure, if I made a mistake there.
I'm sure she will have no problem with that.
And I will have no problem listening. I want to kind of bring us back. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about grief and loss and time, and how those things kind of intersect and impact one another. What we haven't talked about, which was that third topic too much, and that is purpose.
Mhm.
When you think of purpose, what kind of comes to mind?
Well, like we've talked about in the past, purpose to me is what you're meant to do at a certain, at a specific place in time. What am I here to do today? What am I here to do now? You can't think about it in the future. You can start dreaming and fantasizing about what you want to do in the future, but the real thing that you need to ask yourself is, what can you do now with the position you've been put in, the situation you've been put in, and what is the purpose that's going to come out of it? What is your purpose in that? And how do you know why? What is your purpose and why do you know that? It's a very difficult thing for people to figure out, is what is your purpose? Because like you said earlier, we kind of go through life and just, we're in this like cycle of, okay, you're born, you grow up, you get a job, you go through life, you do all the things that you're supposed to in your life or want to do in your life, and then you end it, and it goes back into that cycle of, but nobody ever really knows what their purpose was while they were here.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of gets me thrown off about the topic of purpose. But
I appreciate that. A lot of things come to mind when I think of purpose, and cheating a little bit because we've talked about it before. I feel that most people don't question it to a degree that it creates change in their life, because our lives are so busy, because we're so time oriented. Purpose is a luxury. Even the ability to contemplate purpose is a luxury,
or just a secondary thought.
Yep, exactly. Because of that, people struggle with joy. People might struggle with happiness because they're doing something in their lives that doesn't give them fulfillment. And when I think of purpose, that's what I think of. I think of fulfillment. But that takes risk, it takes effort, it takes sacrifice. And I'm not saying this to sound stoic or better than anyone else, because I'm not. And I've struggled with that a lot since I was a kid up until now. And as I've allowed myself to challenge and take risks, which creating JTM community is a big one of them, and actually ties directly into purpose. You here today, us having this conversation and creating this is a big part of it. Trace and I were talking and trying to navigate doing this. Typically we do it on the weekend, and others may view it as a detriment. It's more work. And I said, hold on a second. I was like, that once this podcast is done, I look forward to doing the next one. I get joy of putting everything together. Are there elements of it that are frustrating? Am I having to learn a lot? Does it take time? Do I get agitated? Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't lie to you. At the same time, I feel fulfilled by going through it and doing the work. And it has come at a sacrifice. A lot of time goes into it, having to say no to other opportunities, having pressure, having the opportunities for other careers or job opportunities. And my knee jerk to appease that was initially to look into it And it had to hit me like hitting a brick wall going 110, is that the sacrifice of falling back into the trap of doing the grind, right? So oftentimes people will do this work to create a life, but they have to maintain the life by doing the work of something that doesn't make them happy, or maybe even worse, makes them miserable. But now they're stuck in this catch-22, this loop, which again, acknowledging that purpose becomes a luxury is when we can take a step back, and has been a silver lining or part of a blessing of, which I know may be taboo to say there's any blessings at all found in this pandemic, is that it's forced people to slow down and has allowed some opportunity, because we're so time oriented, to actually consider some of those questions of, I'm doing this thing that I'm not happy, or I'm in this relationship that I've been in for 30 years and I can't stand this fucker, right? But we've been so time oriented that they always off to the next thing and raising the family and the kids and this and this, that they never put value into that relationship to actually get to know that person. And once they have, they're like, I don't know this person, and now that I'm starting to, I really don't like them.
I really don't want to continue to know this person. So yeah,
which has led to chaos for families without question. And I work with some of those families.
I do as well.
But having that understanding of, like it has allowed in some ways, in some people's lives, to slow down. And again, acknowledging a silver lining in that, which may not feel good for folks, because there's been so much loss, there's been so much hardships that have come through all of this. But I wouldn't be me if I didn't acknowledge the optimism that can also come from that. I mean, and my sister knows this very well. She was there when I got two particular tattoos on my arms. One is the polar opposite of the other, which essentially designate, even in good times, bad things can happen. Even in bad times, good things can happen. And when we have that understanding, we can find the blessings in anything that happens to us, and that can help us propel forward. Bringing it back to purpose has been something that I've said to others, is the idea of purpose. Oftentimes people seek joy. If this makes me joyful, that must be my purpose.
Yes.
But a lot of people can't find the joy, which I come at it at a different angle. If you have something in your life that makes you angry, I mean, truly angry, your purpose is in there. What it is, I don't know, right? But if something can anger you, truly anger you, it's because you're passionate.
Yeah.
And within your passion is your purpose. But we have to be able to distinguish and be more objective about our anger, right? And I think people can feel angry. Unfortunately, given where things are, people are more apt to acknowledge and feel their anger before they acknowledge and feel their joy. But if you can acknowledge that, your joy is just a hop, skip, and a jump away. Is it going to take risk? Is it going to take work? Is it going to take sacrifice? Oftentimes, absolutely. But if you can't find your joy, but can acknowledge your anger, you can find your purpose.
And I agree with that, but I also want to.
Don't have to. You do not have to agree with me.
No, I agree with that, but I also want to say, if you understand your joy as well.
Ideally.
If you know the reason of your joy as well, and you know why it makes you joyful, and just coming back to it, not just focusing on the anger part, but if you know the reason why you're so happy, and that this thing brings you, or this action or situation brings you joy, then you can focus on the why in that as well. So I think it's both sides of the same coin. It's just, which one do you focus on to figure out why it brings you that emotion, or that feeling that it does. So yeah, definitely. I don't want people just to focus on that angry aspect. I can only find I can only find my why just if I'm angry.
Nope.
So let me go get angry at stuff. No, it's joy, it's happiness, it's love, it's everything that you do in your life. Like we said, there's a reason for everything. There's a purpose for everything. There's a reason every student is in my classroom. There's a reason that I'm their teacher. But what is my purpose in their life? I have to find that why, that the reason that I am there, or the reason that you are in Tracy's life, or that she has to find hers, that she is in yours.
Absolutely.
It's just, people don't, and it goes back to time. People don't want to take the time to figure that out.
Or they can't afford to take the time.
Or they can't afford to, because we've put so much emphasis in our society on money and time. Like,
Yep. And as you had said, typically because we're so time oriented and we feel it so much, the first thing that gets sacrificed is time for ourselves.
As us, yeah. And figuring out what our purpose is in life. And like you said, there's people that just sit in the grind all day long.
Yep.
And of course, my grandfather, who was one of the most wonderful guys I know, even though he had, he has his faults as well. Just, he did everything for his family. That's what he was. And that's where I learned this, you do everything for your family, and make sure that you are always trying to be there, and always trying to take care of what needs to be done, at the detriment to yourself, which was one of the flaws that he had, that I slowly caught on to and took as mine. But our purpose was our family. Our reason for doing what we do was our family. And even though it sounds strange, it made sense at the time.
And that's also not to say that purpose can't fluctuate and evolve.
Right.
You might go through a period of life where family is purpose. That is the motivator for you in all your actions. Right. And that can shift. So I don't think that once you find your purpose, it is that in that exact context for your entire life. No. As much as there might be multiple avenues where there is a common purpose that kind of maintains throughout.
And I was just going to say, it's very situational. Like, every situation you're in, you always have to find your purpose. So it doesn't matter whether it be your personal life, your work life. I almost said school life because I just went straight back to that. Whether it be your work life or your personal life or your extracurriculars that you partake in at the time, it's just being self-aware. Going back to one of our conversations earlier, it's being self-aware, being aware of the situations around you, and what is your role in this game. What is your role in this situation? What is your role in the friendship? What is your role? And if it's always a give, and the other person's not reciprocating, then it's probably not a great situation. And your why is, well, I need to get out. But I think it all goes back to being self-aware, understanding where you are in the situation, and then what you and the other person bring to the situation. And you can't make them pull that out. But if you're focusing on your why, and why you're in this relationship, or why you're in this job, or why you're taking care of certain things in a certain way, then I believe it makes your life easier. And then sooner or later, people will either catch on or ask you about it and go, okay, well, how are you doing this? Well, because I know my purpose, I know my reason, I know why I'm doing things, and not the what, the who, the where. It's the why. And I've talked about, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but there's a great speaker that I was listening to over the time during my master's program called his name's Simon Sinek. And he has this whole process of figuring out your why, your purpose. And I encourage anybody that's listening to go and find some of the things that he's talking about on his pages. But it just makes you think differently about situations you put yourself in, and about places where you find yourself. Because if you don't feel that push, like you were talking about, Jason,
Mhm.
if you don't find that push or that that need, it might not be what you're supposed to be doing. It
Mhm.
might not be where you're called to be, or it might not be your real true need in life. And then people just get stuck in it because they need a job, or
Yep.
they need a relationship, or they need friends, when really you just need to be
Mhm.
comfortable with yourself and where you're at.
Yeah, oftentimes we're looking externally to create our own sense of happiness, but it's truly not until we can challenge ourselves, motivate ourselves, have that kind of innovation within us to go beyond that, where we can create those moments for ourselves and then add all those other aspects. So is it, am I just looking for a relationship? Do I just need a partner?
Exactly.
Or what am I actually looking to create?
Yeah.
And
You-
once, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, no, go for it.
And once we can understand that and realize our motives and our motivation, and to use what you're saying, having the understanding of the why, I think we are able to more authentically create the things that we truly need or have value in or purpose for.
Yeah, and you look at so many things, and especially you coming from a counseling background, is you hear and see so many stories of people that put themselves into relationships, whether it be men or women, or whomever. Just they put themselves in relationships because they feel like that's going to fulfill them.
Mm-hmm.
When, like you said, you cannot. We talked about it, I think 2 or 3 episodes ago. You cannot love other people unless you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have other people in a relationship unless you know yourself, and you cannot be their happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're trying to be their happiness, then you're taking it all away from yourself, and that's not your purpose, is to just give everything to make the other person happy, because that's not a relationship. That's insanity.
And it can only work temporarily. And if somebody is relying on you for their happiness, it's already doomed to fail, because the moment that dynamic changes, they're not happy. Now you're the problem.
Yep. And then they're out the door, or
without the acknowledgement that you were never the solution in the first place.
Exactly, because they weren't self-aware. They weren't paying attention to what they needed in their lives, and they just thought that another person, another human being, would fix that.
Yep.
And you see that so many times. And one of the things that I feel like in the divorce world especially is that's what they feel, that a partner will be my answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then if that doesn't work, a child in that relationship will be the answer, and that'll bring us closer together, and that'll give me happiness and purpose, because being a mother or being a father will give me purpose.
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to find your purpose before that. Because if you think that a child is going to bring you purpose, all it's going to bring is, well, now we're getting divorced. And I mean, and people make it work. I'm not saying that people don't.
Yep.
But when you see those certain situations where it's just they get married just because all their friends are getting married, because they feel that pressure.
Yep.
And then they have a kid because all of their friends are having kids, and they feel that pressure, and they think that'll make them happy, when they're not happy with their own life, their work, or their relationship. And they keep pushing the envelope even further and further. It's just compounding everything until, like, people that hold in their emotions, it just explodes. And then you have an ugly divorce, or and the child's ripped away from one or both of their parents, depending on the situation, how serious it gets, if it turns physical. And it's just, you don't want to see that, because people don't take the time to focus on themselves.
Which I think is the important message, whether we're talking about purpose, whether we're talking about time itself, or again, bringing it back to grief and loss, is that all of those things have the commonality of self-reflection. When we can understand why we think or feel a certain way in all of those, and acknowledge the impacts to us, but also of our own behavior and what is motivating us in any direction, whether again it's trying to deal with the grief, and again not implying the death of somebody, but the loss of something.
Yes.
And sometimes, again, that's simply the opportunity. And it could be the opportunity of what we thought our purpose was, can kind of compound, especially when we don't have the time to invest in the purpose. So that we have all three things where we miss the opportunity, we're grieving that, we thought we knew what our purpose is, but we didn't have the time to invest in that. And it creates chaos in our lives. And then we're trying to go back in time because we had the regret of not making the choice of the road less traveled. And all of these things are just compounding on each other. Or it can be the reverse of that, where we, even though we don't have the time, we create and invest the time, like a Friday evening dinner with family, right? Where we're so intentional, and not that we can give it days of the week, right?
Right.
But we make sure we set aside this time for this reason, for this purpose, because we see the value, we know our why in that moment, in that context, right? And if even that comes to the presence of grief, so God forbid at some point you have a loss of those that you spend Friday evening dinner with.
Yes.
But what you also have is the memory of taking the time to spend Friday evening dinners with. And that's something that you have with you, and that helps that sense of why and understanding and value. So just as we can perceive it as a negative and a loss in the damage, by you doing it now, while you have the opportunity, while they have the opportunity to do that, and being intentional to do those things, prevents that from being as negatively impactful in the first place. And I'm not implying ease. I'm implying that it's already difficult, but by acknowledging what you are, and us having even this conversation, hopefully gives that acknowledgement to somebody else as well. But what I really hear us talking about today is the idea of intentionality, of taking the time to step back and being honest with ourselves. Am I in this situation? Am I in this relationship? Am I in this job? Am I in this career? Do I have these friends because there's a purpose that is valuable to me, or is it out of convenience, or out of habit, or out of bad habits even?
Yeah.
And is it going to serve me in the future? Am I going to mourn the loss of this person or this situation, or is this something to be celebrated?
Right.
As always, Will, I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your honesty in having the conversation. I know that we thought we were going to be a party of 3 this afternoon. I know you have a lot of stuff going on there. It does give me great joy and a mild level of hilariousness that I was worried that I was putting things on your plate and was trying to be remarkably intentional not to. At the same time, you were trying to say, no, man, I'm trying to invest in you. I have value in you. And we both felt guilty for it. It's kind of entertaining to me.
And now I have to be intentional in making up the time. I was supposed to be with our third party friend.
Yes.
I was supposed to be hanging out with
all
him
day today.
all day today. And so now I've got to make that up to him as well, and show him that it's not just it's not that relationship spreading apart. It's just we had to take care of things here, and this was the easiest way to do it. So I could do this and take care of my house stuff and stay here. But now I owe him some time
to ease a little bit of that. I did see the text that he has also had his hands full with his house stuff today as well. So I don't think the day turned out for anyone the day we had, or the way we had anticipated.
No.
But being intentional of engaging, whether it's by text message, whether it's us being here this afternoon to do this together. Yep, there's value all over the place. Go ahead.
And if I may real quick, I just a lot of the things that we've been saying today is especially calling out ourselves on certain things, and then talking about what we should be doing better. And
there's that word again.
Yeah. What we want to do better. Let's put it that way. What we want to do better, because we don't live in should land. If you want to take care of it, you take care of it. If you don't, then you just don't. And then the things that are important to you come to light. But you have to realize that, and you have to be aware of that. And a lot of people are going to say, well, you're not doing that. We're working on it. It's a work in progress. You can't turn it. It's not like a light switch. You can't go from here to here and just go flip a light and all of a sudden all of your problems are fixed. You have to be aware of it, and then you have to put in the time to fix those those problems that you have in your life, not problems, but those things that you feel are not where you need to be. Yep. And you need to make it you need to make the time to do it, like we were talking about. So I hope nobody thinks that we're just telling people what to do.
Oh, God, no.
But we're trying to help out by showing our own experiences and failures as people, because like we've been saying, we're not perfect. So just hope that we can get that point across to everybody that it's hard work. So
you're absolutely nailing the head. There is that idea that you're going to make mistakes. It's not going to be perfect. Sometimes it's going to actually be quite ugly.
Yes.
But if you're being intentional and continue to invest and continue to grow, whether it's in regard to the relationships, grief, loss, purpose, time that we've talked about, or any other topics, if I'm being honest, all aspects of life, when you are doing the work, even on the days that you don't feel you have the energy or time, and sometimes it happens in very small ways, right? Maybe it's when your child or a loved one stops to greet you or give you a hug or cuddle for 20 seconds, that you embrace that, versus you're making me late, kid, right?
Yeah.
And just a very, very small example. Again, Will, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you again.
To meet with me today and have this conversation. I always enjoy our time together. For those that have been listening, I hope that you have enjoyed. Of course, we are trying to create a community that you can bank on, where you can belong. I encourage everyone, again, go to j-tm.community/podcast, put in your votes for the next topic. Thanks, Will. As well as send in your stories and feedback. We cannot continue this and maintain this without your input. So your input is literally the blood that makes this work, and we appreciate it so much. There's other resources there. Again, if you want to touch base with me directly for advancement advising, you can do it there. If you have any questions and concerns, you can send it that way as well. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in,